So we welcome in our guest this week, Steve Hein, the Executive Director of the Wildlife Center on campus. Steve, appreciate you joining us.
Hey, if it takes 143 times, I'm glad to finally be here. This is a delight.
Well, this is the first time we are on Monday nights now. There's
Yep.
going to be a lot of programming that's changing over the course of the
Get
next couple
outta
weeks
here.
and months. The very first Monday night live show. So not just you, Freedom here.
Hey, you have made my day. Thank you
course.
both so very, very much.
Absolutely.
And delighted to be here with you.
You've been a big part of the football game day. Everybody calls Freedom's Flight the most exciting 30 seconds in sports. Take us through how everything got started of when was the first flight? How did it come to be? Was it you taking it to athletics coming to you? How did that all come about of being Freedom's Flight?
Well, and a good starting point, I would say, but in truth, the fact that we even have an eagle at Georgia Southern, we make the natural tie-in, to our mascot and school logos and all that good stuff. But to have a live eagle, and I tell this story often, and the true stories are always the best. It ties back to football specifically. And our patron saint, if I'm allowed to say that, that one Irk Russell, we all might know him. And
Look, his head's in the end zone, so yeah, he's the patron saint.
he's everywhere. But the fact of the matter is, and these are the things that make my career and my job so dear, is that in 1990 we were in a playoff game and had a bird fly over, and it was on national television, I guess, and it was during an intermission. They were trying to fill up some time, and I guess they put the camera on it. I've seen the video. It's still archived somewhere. And on that fateful day, it turned out to be a turkey vulture. So if we're talking about Freedom or the Wildlife Center, it's, I love vultures. I mean, it took a vulture to fly over for someone. And a gentleman had the idea and said, hey, Steve, can we get an eagle at Georgia Southern? So a little background story there. It was 5 presidents ago, and I think everybody got on board, and we raised some funding. It was originally, let me sidebar yet again, is that it was originally going to be just a little cupola of sorts, or something at beautiful Sweetheart Circle, and yet here we have a wonderful wildlife center. So the impetus was to build something around it. I think the university took the right tact to it. If we're going to, really possess something highly regulated as a bald eagle, our national symbol, let alone our school mascot, we got to make it educational. It's like, oh, okay. So but at that time, 1992 to be exact, we put in a request to get an eagle, to write that great travesty from 1990, and it took 14 years to get his truly right here, because we're on a waiting list. And the reason for that is simply that any eagle, and I think we're all on board here, is if they're healthy, they need to be in the wild. And this law is mandated. This is one of the most protected animals in all of North America and probably around the world. 2 acts of Congress actually protect this species. So we're on this waiting list, and we get a call, and I remember quite vividly getting the call in 94, I think. We got them in 1997. Anyway, we get the call that here's your bird. We had been waiting, the time or date wasn't right, but anyway, we waited 14 years, and he's now 15 years old, to get an eagle that was deemed to be non-releasable and yet fully flighted. So we had other eagles, but that's how Freedom came to be.
Was it one of those that it was kind of a undetermined amount of time that you would be waiting, so you didn't know that call was coming, or did you kind of have an idea of a timeline?
No, we had none. We were at the mercy of, fish and wildlife, and in fact, and that's why I said the timeline, I apologize, was off. We actually had built the center. It was open. We opened the center in 1997, so it was years later. And quite frankly, I remember going, this is a pretty good gig. We got a wildlife center. It was 4.5 acres. We're doing our shtick, and we're flying birds. We're educating the public. No real pressure to fly it on a given Saturday. I was like, maybe I can scoot on my 28 years I've been here, but fate would not allow that to be. It's like, no, we got your eagle, and no, it was there's so much competition to get an eagle, across our country, and I think there's 7 different regions within U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and so even among that, there's a little politics involved, and so this one came down in our region, which was in Florida. And there's more eagles in Florida than any other state other than Alaska. And
Would not have thought that.
Yeah. Well, all the water, if you think about it. Eagles are always attached to water. Yeah. So we got the call, and it was then Dr. Gruby. So we're talking about several presidents ago. And I remember making the call and up to the president's office, say, I think they're, U.S. Fish and Wildlife said they have one located. It's a young bird. If you want it, come get it. And so I don't know why I necessarily called him, although I guess I needed presidential proof. but I remember, statutes of limitations are he's since retired and did so much for Georgia Southern, but he in so many words said, go and go now. And I literally left, I got the call by noon and I was gone by 5. It was in Maitland, Florida, and we were picking it up because, again, the amount of pressure to have an eagle that's flight capable but non-releasable, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, was really the driver. And so really that was when we punched the clock. It was like, okay, now how big a fella are you? Because now you got to train them. It's like, that's what really did start it.
So you said he's 15, technically?
Yeah.
Do you have a birthday party for him? How do you determine his birthday, or is that even something you can determine?
I don't know that we can. We've got some of the data because of the nature of this bird. They monitor, and there's a science part of this question, and then the humorous. Which one do we want to go for? They monitor all eagle nests as best. They're off the endangered. They're off the threatened list. We had no nesting pair in the state of Georgia in 1983, but they've come back. They're really doing quite well. But they're still a species of concern. They still monitor them. So this bird, Freedom, his history was outside of Maitland, Florida, where they have a rehab facility down there. But somebody who worked at the facility actually had a nesting pair right above her driveway. And she had monitored that. And she gets up one morning, and there's this big, probably 2 feet tall brown ball of fur. And that was Freedom. And they whisked her in. They realized there was a damage to his beak. Either one, and this is an often asked question, is what happened to the beak once they identify that he's kind of scissor-beaked. Either birth defect, but because there was also a puncture or an injury, it was more than likely, I would conjecture, what we call Cain and Abel syndrome. So if you've got mom and dad that are inept and not bringing enough groceries for whatever reason, and you've got a female and a male, 2 nestlings, female being a third larger, hatched first, she's looking at the younger brother going, don't take it personally, but Cain and Abel syndrome. Why should we both suffer and die? So he may have actually been grabbed by an older sibling, a female, jettisoned himself out of the nest, landed in the driveway. We get the call and said, he's got an injury that is going to be permanent. And our next on the list is this Georgia Southern University, the Steve Hein guy. And that's been 15 years ago.
When you started this journey here at Georgia Southern and finding the Wildlife Center, building it from the ground up, did you have any idea it would become what it is today?
No, I still am in disbelief. And as I jokingly said, but there's nothing about it which is a joke. Everything about my life has been an accident. This is an accidental career, and I can claim very little credit. I'm eternally thankful to, obviously, the university who gave me, a blank canvas, literally, in terms of the property, and then the great many people who are, you talk about true blue. We were talking, Danny, a little earlier about what does it mean to be true blue. I can tell you from my perspective who they are. I'll give you that list a little bit later, but it'll cost you a little bit. It'll be a donation to the Wildlife Center in care of Freedom. No, it's all legit. I'm talking straight up. But no, anyway. The fact of the matter is that that happened, and I can't tell you how many times I'm approached, and it's always quite flattering in phone calls, and it's usually is this Dr. Hein? And immediately it's like, yes, it is. It's like, no, I'm lucky I got a diploma, and Georgia Southern kicked me off with a finance degree. But all things in due course and the connectivity. So it all really worked well. And I've jokingly have said over the years that I'm in the business of wildlife, and you folks are in the business of athletics. It doesn't mean it's not a business. You love athletics, but it's a business. If you can't do it, and I would liken the same to the environment and certainly the Wildlife Center. So, no, it's been an incredible ride, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm of age and I've got my years, and I'm enjoying it, and I'd like to see myself here, and as long as he keeps doing what he's supposed to do, maybe I'll be here for a good while yet. Yeah.
Being so much a part of the game day, and I know it's not just show up and fly. There's a lot of preparation that goes into the 30 seconds that people see on the game day. Take us through, and I know it's a couple of times a week you're doing practice flights, and Scott was telling me earlier you let us come out, and Danny went down on the field with you. I went on the roof with Scott, who has been a long-time partner with you. Take us through what that looks like from kind of preparing to do Freedom's Flight.
Well, we at this point, and we've done it now, what is it, our 15th year or thereabouts, but I think our spring practice is not that different. And I do that, for the same reasons I think football does what it does. I mean, you've got muscle memory, you've got all these things, these cues and reading cues and things like that. So part of it is just doing your due diligence so that you can account for whatever happens on the field. We've done our practice flights, so you do that. But at this many years into it, I think I do it as much for me, just to make sure it's like, okay, I've done this. Please, baby Jesus, would you fly for me or whatever? Because everybody does, and I'm making light of it. But if we do our job well, and I'm sure it speaks for you folks and others, being a part of athletics, kind of on the peripheral, is no one should know. No one should have any idea. And I said earlier, Danny, when we were talking about the football field, I remember the grass fields, and that's an ongoing debate. But there was so much more maintenance to it, and yet people don't come to the stadium and go, "My God, look at that green grass, honey! Would you look at that? Could you give me the recipe? How do you make that green?"
I think Roger still does.
Yeah, we can get you that.
Well, and I forgot about our second patron saint. We have a lesser saint in Roger. A little skewed.
First time Roger's ever been called a saint.
Well, I'm cleaning it up for our audience. But the point is, I think he used to. Well, I'm not even going to go there. But I'll pass on it. But I know what the secret ingredient is. That's my point. But anyway, back to the field, and it just was fascinating to watch all that, and so. To see him do it, I'm taking a lot of things into account and things that people don't really need to think about, and I can let the cat out of the bag. But people do ask, if we don't fly, well, why? Well, there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind. Well, which direction? Is it headwind, tailwind? I mean, ask any pilot. All of his flights, by the way, have been here at Paulson. The guy hasn't, in 15 years, if you're a pilot, he has not amassed 2 hours of flight time. I mean, he's not really been given his license to fly yet. I mean, so he's still kind of figuring it out, as we all are. But you take all those things into account, and it never is more poignant than when I had, and I've stopped doing this, and I've realized I'm slow on the draw. But so often we were talking, as you saw him fly to the food that I'm offering. Well, first off, he's coming not necessarily because of this bromance that we have for one another. Not that it's not real, but but I'm doing it because I've got his Mac Daddy meal. It's supersized meal. He's eager to eat that. But anyway, in the course of it, and this has happened multiple times, where he affectionately, I guess I can say this, I've called it the toilet bowl flight, if it offends anybody. But it's a toilet bowl flight that's around the stadium, and we spoke of that, where he's going over the student section, and people just love that. Well, when I'm walking on the concourse here, I've had more than one person step up and stop me and say, that was the most beautiful flight, Steve, where it circled like 4 times, and I could tell how cool it is because you kept turning around, and he kept following you. And it's like, well, do I want to pull back the curtain and go, that's not really what's happening. I was mumbling under my breath saying, could you please come down and alight on my fist so that we could get off the stage. But anyway, so and I'd go into long dissertations, and now I say thank you. I love the great flight. Well, thank you, but it was never planned that. We really like the A to B flight. Yeah.
A year ago. 7 home games. No flights. That was part of the Sun Belt Conference's protocols. Anything that was outside what was normal or what could be done on the field was nixed.
Absolutely.
So as you're trying to get ready for this year, are you making up for lost time, or what has that been like trying to get ready for this season since you didn't get a chance to do it live a year ago?
Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, September 4th, right?
Yes.
The first game.
19 days.
Ask me then.
Okay. Pop in first quarter. We'll catch you.
Yeah. We may have this may be our last interview actually ever. No, depending on how it goes on the 4th. No, I do have a response to that, which is we talked earlier about my involvement with Birds of Prey long before the Wildlife Center, hunting with them and all that, 35 years, and so you learn some things along the way. And in these predatory animals, that fight or flight, he's got it down. I mean, he knows what it is. And you don't, Danny, in a more serious vein, they don't forget that stuff at all, because their very livelihood, evolutionary. I'm talking about birds of prey, 57 million years, 50 to 70% of young birds of prey, eagles and they die for the first birthday. So if they learn that I've got McDonald's Happy Meal at the 10-yard lines, to your question, I don't think he's forgetting it. So it's not that. It's really what are the variables that are different, and our partner in crime, our part, yeah, it is kind of intimidating. It's like, oh, take a look here. Yeah. Anyway, our partner in crime, Dan Adams, is the one that we talked about. He's the one, and he does a great job. But when he was starting out here, it's like, Dan, tell me what the field's like. Those are the things that I'm interested in this upcoming. What's on the field? What's going to change? You've already said there's going to be a lot of marketing pieces that have been, which is great, but I need to see it through the eyes of an eagle, and anything in the air is huge. It's a fight or flight. It's in the end, and I think both of you lamented and got to watch him fly. This is still kind of ostensibly a wild animal. Make no mistake. So we don't ever take it for granted, and we just pray a lot on the 10-yard line. But anyway. Oh, Danny, you want to do something? I wanted to say this earlier, and I know this portion. Can you feel right up here? If you just grab that big bump right there?
Right there? Okay.
Yeah, you know what that is, right?
I have no idea.
That's the rat he just ate.
Oh,
I swear to God.
Steve, I appreciate you telling me.
Just thought I'd mix that in.
I appreciate that.
I was just waiting for the opportune time. But anyway, that was this McDonald's Happy Meal. Yeah. So
that's awfully nice of you.
Well, it's just, it's a first. We like to. I don't know how well that plays over the air, but it's real.
Perfect.
Yeah.
A big part of everybody sees you walking around on game day, and I know that is really near and dear to your heart to not just be Freedom's Flight and then go home.
Sure.
Being able to get Freedom out there with the people around Paulson Stadium without being able to be around so many people, whether it be here at football, you bring them out to a baseball game, bring them out to different events, not just athletics, but across campus as well. And I know that's something that is really important to you to get the education piece out there about the Wildlife Center. Well,
and it even goes beyond education, quite frankly, and so we can flip a switch here and not get serious. I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but that's the most important thing to me. It's the privilege, and I've said this so often in various interviews and things like that. I am ever mindful that I'm next to something that means so much. So I'm just kind of the caretaker, the guardian. This is I'm the guard at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He is it. I'm a walking, talking tree, but. And this is heresy to some people, but we'll let it go out there. As much as I love wildlife and animals and painting and all the painting wildlife and stuff like that, I love people more. So just don't let that get out in the airways. But anyway, it's all about people, and so to be able to be with people and share something. And so let me give you a couple anecdotal, if you may, little sidebars that mean the world to me. That really kind of I get choked up after a game, and it was here at Paulson. It was a nighttime game. It was late, and okay, I'm sure we won. I don't remember the exact game, but of course we won. So I didn't need to throw that in. But
we win?
We won.
I
think we won big. It's all coming back to me. But anyway, so aside from winning big, it is simply this: so after 4 hours and freedom and walking around and at the very end, I try to do it as long as these old bones will wear it, and so we're doing that, and we have these great traditions, and the band plays, and everybody's kind of gone, and it's late, and it's cold, and I'm kind of walking off, and there'll be somebody who says, one more photograph. Well, anyway, on this particular occasion, I had this woman who was nearly my age. She was as old as dirt. She was an old lady. But anyway, no, she wasn't that old. But she comes up, and she's coming at me at a pretty good clip. I'm really kind of jettisoning out of the stadium, and I could tell she's of Latino. She's crying. That's never happened to me before. It's like, what did I do? And she's clearly coming my way. I'm thinking she's going to jack me up. I have no idea why she's coming at me so quickly. And there was a woman that was right beside her, much, much younger. And she kind of rushes in on me in freedom, much like this hooded. And she, this where it's tough, she kisses him on the wing. She just runs right up to him and kisses him on the shoulder. And then she's speaking Spanish. And I'm like, what just happened? And this lady says she's speaking, and she was from, I don't know if it was Honduras or God knows wherever, but she is just so moved. She's applying to be a U.S. citizen. Her dream is to come to the United States.
Wow. And
I just kind of walked away and went, oh, that's cool. Then I had to just kind of swallow. It was like, wow. Just how incredible is that to have? So it's not, being in Luke Bryant's bus that remembers that was a good time. But it's things like that. And then the other one that is a sidebar story, and again, you guys can shut me off at any time but one thing segues to another one. We played Auburn University. And Auburn does a great job, and it was neat to many years ago, 25 years ago, to be able to invite over and talk to the vet school and take them out hunting with my birds of prey. And this was a school of veterinary medicine for which my niece just recently graduated. I will tell you this, that you're at a vet school lecturing, and you're going to take them hunting the following morning, and they take me to Tuskegee National Forest, and my bird kills like 5 squirrels. And it's a felony offense to hunt in a national park. Anyway, it's like, great job. I didn't realize that till afterwards. But anyway, back to the most recent playing of Auburn. The second story with Auburn is that we're playing that game, and I do what I do. Regardless, win, lose, or draw. And this is bigger. I won't say bigger than Georgia Southern football, but it's a national symbol. So you share that, and there's some really neat moments that happen. Well, in this case, I was in the end zone. And I was walking about and at halftime, and my niece, who's was finishing up vet school, she pops me on the phone. I look at it. She said, Uncle Steve, you're on national television. It's like, cool, but they're calling it the Auburn Eagle. And that was a proud moment. It's like, no, it wasn't there. So then at that game, and Danny, you guys probably remember, there was they introduced it at halftime, and he was an NFL player who just retired, but this massive mountain of a man. And so I'm up on the stage, I'm up walking around, and he comes up, and he's like, man, can I get a photograph? And this guy's every bit of 6'5", and I'm trying to barely reach my arm up with freedom and take a photograph of the guy. And he starts walking away, and he said, man, I love our whatever the name of the eagle was. And I pointed down, I said, no, this is Freedom. This is Georgia Southern's eagle. The look on his face, he was like, oh my God. Like he was creating heresy. But anyway.
Something had happened before that game. They had flown a backup eagle that game. It was a golden eagle. It wasn't the normal eagle.
Oh, really?
Because I think that eagle had suffered some kind of heart condition. So they had to fly the backup. It was a golden eagle, almost like one you would see related to the Southern Miss logo.
I'll be darned. Oh.
And that was something that we thought it was really unique. But when 85,000 people are in there and seeing it from that scale, okay.
Wow. Yeah, because it traditionally is not a, it's a bald eagle as ours is. It's their mascot is a golden eagle, a war eagle. So anyway, fun stuff though, and I've been blessed well beyond my deserving to a million little anecdotal stories and moments and contacts and like I said, I'm privileged for sure to do what I do.
You've been able to do a lot of really cool things, be at a lot of really cool places, carrying Freedom with you. What's some of the best places and some of your favorite memories of being able to step back and say, that was pretty cool to be able to go to that or be there?
Florida. Are you kidding me? Jeez, that was. As a matter of fact, what's fun is it's going south on them so fast, and it may not have been the best Gator team. Our administrative assistant is a big Florida Gator fan, so I hope she's listening. But anyway, if she's not, I'll rub it in again. But it was interesting. We were pummeling them, and they were kind of – but I actually got kicked out of the stands. So I was pretty proud. I was kind of a renegade.
You got kicked out of the stands in Florida?
I did.
I don't know this.
I don't know that I knew that.
No, that's been so many years ago. But I think they just didn't like – and I wasn't meaning to be flaunting. I mean, it was just that's what I was doing. And they had people said, security, they had to come. I've never had a speeding ticket, but I got told to get and I've seriously, I have not. But I literally got escorted and said, you must stay in this little area. So it's, yes, sir. So I tried and true. But that certainly would be a standout. And then, when we played Alabama, and again, they got hit by a buzzsaw, and they didn't know what hit them. And that certainly, and the people were were wonderful. They were really outstanding folks. So, and I've had some others that were not so nice about it, But anyway,
you talked about whenever Freedom flies, you're kind of praying a little bit. The first flight that he had in front of however many people here at Paulson Stadium,
2007.
How nervous were you?
Oh, yeah, things I can't talk about. No, I tell you this, I can answer. There were nervous times. We did all the heavy lifting, all the work. You do that, and we've done it every year since. But if I'm not still slightly nervous or pensive about it or excited, it's time to move on. It is. But nowadays it's like I've done it a long time. He's done it, and what the heck? I mean, he's gone out and tailgated and drank beer with the team or whatever. That and people do remind me of that as if I've ever forgotten the one time they did fly out. So I'm appreciative for all those in the listening land who come up and say, "You remember Steve when he flew out and you had to get him in the soccer field?"
Like, oh yeah,
yeah,
we remember that.
I had forgotten it for a second.
No, I had forgotten it, but God, thank you for that one. I can relive that all over again. But anyway, but it was kind of like a get out of jail card free, because it's not enough for you to say it's too windy, or whatever, this, that, or the other. But once we have that and it becomes part of the cultural memory, it's like, oh my God, now how many times have we flown? A gazillion. But we're always doing that. But no, the first couple times, yes, we were nervous and we did all that, and the wind, and I still, but now it's more excitement. It's like, man, let's do it. And you'll see sometimes I literally can't hide my relief, because I think I've wiped my brow in front of the television going, wow, he took the long route, but he's here. So
I'll give you a quick sidebar about a day that he didn't fly, because when I was with the Citadel, this was my first year in November of 2011. I remember being in the visiting radio booth and hearing, man, they're going to fly the Eagle before the game. I said, what? Yeah, he's going to fly around this team, because unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize this happened.
Yeah.
Heard over the PA, Freedom will not be flying today because of the wind. And
yes.
that's coming up on 10 years ago already.
Yeah, that's a Debbie Downer. Yeah, for a lot of people.
And the funny thing about it, at the end of the game, the Citadel had a chance to win the game on a field goal. Wind pushed it off, so maybe it's good that Freedom.
There you go. Yeah. So you become a bit of a weatherman. We're constantly, we go up there with the wind gauge. We really do. So and we try not to fly, over 10 miles an hour. And even then, it's based on the direction and gusts of 15. I mean, you just got to take that into account. It took us this long to get them. It took us 3 years to train them. We get requests to fly all over the country. And every time I've taken it to whomever the president was at the time, do you want to fly at a racetrack down in Daytona? Well, Steve, tell me about it. Well, he could fly off and we'd never see him again. The answer is pretty quickly, nope. So we really just kind of, I think he's pretty well wed to Paulson Stadium.
We talked about him a little bit earlier, but Scott, the other half of your team during Freedom's flight, he's at the top of the press box releasing Freedom. You guys have been together for a long time. He's the curator over at the Wildlife Center. What does that relationship have to be between you, Scott, and Freedom, all getting on the same page for a Freedom's flight?
Well, good point. And Scott has been with me even further than that when he was a student here at Georgia Southern. So, and taking care of some of the few animals that we had as we were prepping pre-1997. So, it is in sync, because I rely on him a great deal, because he's seeing what I'm not seeing. And as we said before, like the two of you, one up and one down, Danny on the field with me, is we're looking at the behavior, and he's, we get here early enough. But Scott is able to read the behavior. He's holding them, since I got 4 hours of holding them, so I let him hold them here when we're where we are right now. It's like my arm's pretty wimped out already. But anyway, but he'll start describing, and I'll be on the radio chatting at him, saying, what's his behavior? Is we call it rowing, but is his wings, will he pump a little bit as if he's excited? These are these little pieces of behavior that you want to see. And when we don't see him, he and I kind of go stealth. It's like, you're not seeing it? I'm not seeing it either. You think he's going to fly? I don't know if he's going to fly, Steve. Whatever. We've had some angst. The difference is, and all he has to do is get the hood off. I'm the one who's, granted, the camera and the people's eyes and attention are on him. But the one thing's certain, he's going to fly. So he's done his job when he leaves. Me, on the other hand, I'm doing pirouettes, praying to the God of whomever that he'll land where he's supposed to land. So I think at that point he becomes part of the audience.
You talk about the bromance between you and Freedom, and a lot of people don't realize that it's not just show up at Paulson and then go back to the Wildlife Center. Yes, he has a home there, but he also goes home with you.
Well, he does, and that really has a couple different storylines to it. Initially, again, the fact that we waited, we've already covered this, that we got the bird, we waited all this time. Well, you make a mistake with a bird, and this is speaking of many years of hunting with them and training them, they remember it. I mean, everything is put to memory. So my job, and to make this more succinct, is to make sure that he's not traumatized. And it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. That emotional, I mean, these are, I'm not going to knock. I'll make sure he's not listening. They're not the smartest. No, they're not equivalent to parrots, citizens, or the corvids, which are your ravens and things like that. So, but they're very kind of responsive to stimuli and stuff like that. And so I thought, okay, now we've got the eagle. Now I've got to start training it. I did not want to train it here at the Wildlife Center, where there was all of this. I live out in the country. I wanted to be just total isolation so I could bring this young bird that has never seen people and control every bit as we introduced it. So for 3 years, unbeknownst to the public, I was upstairs, I was tidbitting, I was feeding, I was shaping, I was doing all this, every game, every event. And then I got to where I was out in front of it. So we use food as a operant condition, the reward and getting lengthily there. But anyway, so that's how we did all of that. Well, once he was trained and realized now that first flight that you've already spoken to, it's like, oh, now I need to safeguard that. Well, we've got some great students here at Georgia Southern now, I think 20,000 as we start the fall. But college students being what college students are, I'm not so sure I wanted him on display, because sometimes they like to visit the Wildlife Center after hours, and that wouldn't be a good thing. So if you read yeah, exactly. So I think once we had him trained, it was then how do we safeguard that? And bear in mind, in both in the training stages and also presently, all of this had to be approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. There is literally nothing I do that doesn't have their blessing, because I'm just an employee. The bird is permitted to the university, but it's not owned by the university. It's actually owned by, technically, we the people of the United States, and the federal government gets to determine what they do. And there's been high-profile cases where they've confiscated birds. So I just need to get to retirement. I'm good. I'm just kidding. Bad joke. I'll pull that off the table.
We've talked so much about being at athletics, the Wildlife Center. When you kind of, not necessarily look back, but when you look at everything that you've been able to be a part of here at Georgia Southern, what is it that you're most proud of?
Wow. And I do a pretty good job of talking, but you kind of stopped me in my tracks there. You covered the first flight. That certainly is the case, and everything associated with freedom. But that was almost a relief, because the people who made the Wildlife Center, the people and the corporations, and this is giving great credit where credit due. The university blindly took faith in me, which is literally an act of mercy. But anyway, and then I had a whole host of people who contributed a great deal of money. So, but the driver to it was the eagle. So even though we built the center, I didn't feel like I had met my commitment, to be really honest. So freedom filled that piece in so fundamentally. But we did two years with the NBA Atlanta Hawks. I mean, that was like way cool. I mean, could you imagine you're flying? And that happened so oddly enough. We did a lot of events in Atlanta, and it was the Turner family bought the Thrashers and the Hawks, and I was doing a Captain Planet of all things. Yes, Captain Planet. I did Captain Planet. Well, this has been so many years ago, but Ted Turner's oldest daughter ran that foundation, I guess. But anyway, so we were doing some kind of event, and I had read at Snooki's, the old restaurant here in Statesboro, and we can all genuflect when we mention Snooki's. But I remember reading the paper, so I was at her, and I said, have you ever thought about flying a Hawk at the Hawks game? And she said, can you do it? And this was a black tie event. I said, I don't know, I think so. Anyway, getting to that point, so we got a contract.
Black tie on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we turn around and we get the contract, and so from that we got to meet. And my older two were quite young at the time, in middle school and so forth, and they would always ask, who did you meet? What celebrity? And so it was kind of cool to meet Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, and Shaquille O'Neal and all that. But I remember, and I've told this story enough, but this is one of the highlights when you talk about it, just humorous, when you'd come home and the next morning, we got home at like 2 a.m, but my kids would ask, who did you meet? Did you meet a celebrity? I said, no, I nobody that I recognize. I said, but they did introduce me for some reason I don't know to one of the ushers, and it was a pregnant pause, and they looked at me. They said, Dad, let me show you. Was it this person? Yeah. So he said, that is Usher. I said, well, who is Usher? I thought it was an Usher. And I said they were really fussing. Anyway, so there's a lot of really special moments. Danny, you don't have to laugh at me that hard.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, I'm telling of my age, but anyway.
Who is Usher?
I had not a clue. Well, he was just starting off. Give me a break. He wasn't the super star that he is today.
Okay.
But anyway, no, there's just been a lot of. But I'll tell you, it's. I really am doing a poor job of answering because there's these little moments all the time. There are people who come by the Wildlife Center who just are. How about the people who've quite elderly, even older than I, who have lost loved ones in the military, and they're seeing him and they're asking to get photographs. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that happens. So it's just all been, well exceeded any of my expectations, and. I think no one expected it from me, and I don't think I did a whole lot. I was just dumb enough to not know what could happen, including a Freedom's Flight. You just say, hey, let's try it, and everybody forgive me if it goes awry. That's just life. Let's all be kind.
You call it coincidence. You can call it whatever you want to, but it popped up on my Facebook memories earlier on today that today, 12 years ago, my cousin graduated from Georgia Southern. Fran Marshall, now up in the Augusta area. And correct me if I'm wrong, 2009, that would have been the first graduating class that had Freedom fly over them.
Yes. Wow. Because we flew 2007, but I didn't think he was up for a commencement flight because the field was crowded. And I know you were going to take the story elsewhere, but I remember Gruby said, "No, you will fly, Dr. Gruby," and I think I said, "Yes, sir." I think that was my exact words, "Yes, sir." And so you're right. Wow, when to put all that together?
It was the first time I was ever in this stadium. I think I was a sophomore in high. I don't know, years run together. But the first time I was in this stadium, and the first Freedom's Flight over the graduates, Fran was a part of.
Wow, yeah,
and it says 12 years ago today.
That is, well, the serendipity and synchronicity of life. And that is, I think Southern Living magazine did an article like that. And it was like, that's me. I didn't know what the words meant at the time. but on the other hand, I couldn't disagree with it. And so here we are having a moment. Those are the things that are so enriching, that you have no idea where they're going to show themselves. And it's just simply because we're next to something that means a lot to. I'm just a temporary custodian, but it's a pretty good ride. Pretty good ride.
Steve, appreciate you taking some time tonight to kind of sit down, and I know you're passionate about sharing the story, sharing freedom with everybody, not only in Eagle Nation, but around the country, and being able to do what you do.
I consider it an incredible privilege, and I'm thankful to everybody out there who's made my life possible. It's all about other people, and I'm just the beneficiary.
Steve, appreciate the time.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, man.
Take care. See you.